Hey there! Welcome back to Cooking with AJMR. I am your host, Chef AJMR, and in today's video, I will be showing you guys how to cook the fifth and final dish of my senior project, which is arroz con pollo, that translates to rice with chicken. So I don't know if you guys have realized, but I am donning some new attire for this video. I actually want to give a huge shout out to my aunt, who actually went out of her way to make this custom chef apron with my little digital art character on it, with the little Chef AJMR doodle, and even the logo of the channel at the very top, which is really cool. And she even made this little stirring spoon thingy with the name of the channel at the top and the little graphic as well. It surprises me every time because this isn't actually the first time my aunt has done this for me. She's made other shirts or hoodies with my art on it. So although I was able to help out with the logo and the drawing, I myself don't know how to make my own custom merch. I'm just very grateful that my aunt, who once again has done this multiple times before in the past, I'm grateful that she was able to get this special gift for me for this final cooking tutorial video so I can show it off to you guys. Thank you otra vez, tia. Getting back on topic, a plate of arroz con pollo is a very traditional and popular dish in the Colombian culture, which can usually be found at family gatherings and parties alongside other popular dishes like una ensalada de papa, which we have actually covered in a previous video. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to the ingredients section of this cooking tutorial video. Okay, the necessary ingredients that I will be using during this cooking tutorial video are as follows. First, we have a piece of chicken, some peas and carrots, diced onions, 2 cups of rice. Although this is only 1 cup, I will utilize 2 later in the video. Then we have some lemon juice, some vegetable oil, some colored condiment powder, some salt, which is only optional, but if we need to add more salt because the flavor of the arroz con pollo is still kind of bland, that we can have it here just in case. Then we have some caldo Maggi de pollo, which is actually a chicken flavor seasoning that you guys can find at multiple Hispanic stores near you. And then we have some regular ketchup, which we will be using to add more flavor to the actual arroz con pollo. I would like to add, however, that one additional but popular ingredient that people like to include in their arroz con pollo in the Colombian culture is actually adding chopped up pieces of sausage. And although we don't include it here, you guys are more than welcome to utilize it whenever you are cooking your own arroz con pollo. Alright, now that I've listed out all the ingredients that I'm going to be using, we can now start with the first step of making our arroz con pollo. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our chicken and actually wash it properly with water in the sink. We're going to make sure that both sides of the chicken are properly washed, like so. You can empty out the water once the container has gotten full. And then we just continue to add the water to make sure it's clean. And then, once you feel like the chicken is properly clean on both sides, go ahead and empty out the container. And then, we're going to grab a little bit of lemon juice. But before we do that, let's start filling up the container with water just a little bit. Once again. And then, we're going to squirt a little bit of lemon juice on the top, as such. And once we're done with the lemon juice, we can go ahead and put it away and then continue to properly wash the chicken, making sure that it absorbs the lemon juice. You can once again wash off the chicken with water and then empty out the water, make sure it's completely dry. And now we can move over to the cutting board and cut the chicken into 3 pieces. Now that we have finished applying some lemon juice to the chicken and actually washing it down with water in the sink, we we can now go ahead and take our knife and cut the chicken into 3 pieces. I like to cut them vertically, but if you guys want, you can cut the chicken into more smaller pieces, but not too small, because we will eventually peel apart some of the pieces of chicken once it's cooked on the stove. So let's just go ahead and cut the chicken into 3 parts. There's one, and then the other one. Try to cut them at the same relative size. Then we have our 3 pieces of chicken that we have ready to put on the stove. Now that we have cut our 3 pieces of chicken on the cutting board, we can now move on to the next step of this cooking tutorial video, which is actually putting these pieces of chicken on the stove with the diced onions and also adding the other condiments like el caldo Maggi de pollo, some colored condiment powder, as well as some vegetable oil. Okay, moving on to our next step, we will take our pieces of chicken and put them into this little pot right here and add also the pieces of onion. We can put that to the side as well as the cutting board. And now our pot should look like this, having the 3 pieces of chicken as well as the diced onions. Now we can go ahead and fill up the pot with some water, but not too high, making sure that whenever we're cooking these ingredients, the water doesn't rise up too high because of the high temperature and also the pressure that can get stuck inside the actual pot. So we're just going to fill it up a little bit with water, and then once we've done that, we can go ahead and move on to the stove and add all the other condiments. So for this part, you're gonna have to estimate how much water is going in. All you need to know is that you can't have the water up too high, because once we have this pot with the ingredients on the stove, and when the temperature is really high, the water can actually start to rise. So don't put the water up too high, but I'm just gonna try to estimate here. So we're just gonna let it fill up a little bit. I think that should be good. So I would say that's little less than half of the pot filled with water, or maybe exactly half. I would probably recommend putting a little less than half. So now that we have our water inside the pot, you can go ahead and take it over to the stove and then add the condiments. Okay, so now that we are at the stove, we can go ahead and turn it on at about more than halfway. So if this is halfway at medium, we'll go ahead and turn it to 7, I would say, to make it boil up a little bit faster compared to putting it at let's say temperature 6, because it does boil a little less faster. So just to speed up the process, we're gonna go ahead and put it at 7. So now that we have put the pot with the water and diced onions and pieces of chicken on the stove, we can go ahead and grab ourselves a regular spoon, and then we will take a little bit of caldo Maggi, which is the chicken flavor seasoning. Looks like this. We're gonna pour at least, let's say, basically a spoonful of this as such. Well, that should be fine. We can just go ahead and pour it. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and also add the colored condiment powder. We're just going to estimate how much. Use the other side, the holes in it, like so. We may or may not need to add a little more, but like that. Then, once we have added the caldo Maggi de pollo and the colored condiment powder, we will take our vegetable oil and pour 2 circular motions around it as such, like that. And now we can go ahead and start stirring the condiments. Let's say using a spoon or maybe something like this. We can start stirring all the ingredients. You can stir for around maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and then once you have finished stirring, we can go ahead and leave this pot on the stove to cook for around 15 minutes. And then once the 15 minutes are over, we're going to move on to the next step of this cooking tutorial video, which is actually removing the pieces of chicken, allowing them to cool off for around 5-ish minutes, and then we will start adding the other ingredients, such as like the ketchup, as well as the rice. Oh, and one last thing to mention, while you guys actually have the ingredients cooking on the stove, we can go ahead and like cover it like somewhat so that the pressure from the food cooking on the stove doesn't like get trapped inside, so we can let some of the steam flow out. So we can just leave it like half covered, just like this. So yeah, all we have to do now is just wait the 15 minutes, and then we can remove the pieces of chicken and also turn off the stove in the meantime while we wait for the chicken to cool off. And then yeah, I'll just get back to you guys when we are done with this step. Okay, so it's been around 17-ish minutes. We can go ahead and turn off the stove, at least for now, and we can go ahead and start removing the pieces of chicken from the pot. We can go ahead and use like a fork, grab the pieces of chicken, put them off to the side with a plate that we have ready to go. Now that we removed all 3 pieces of chicken that we had, we can go ahead and move this pot off where it was and let it cool off for a little bit. And then we can go ahead and put these pieces of chicken that have finished cooking outside to cool off for around 5 minutes. So now that we have finished this part, we can go ahead and move on to the next step of this cooking tutorial video while we wait for the pieces of chicken to finish cooling down. Okay, so this next step that we're going to do is we're going to take our pieces of peas and carrots and actually wash them down with water, seeing as they are like frozen together because they were in the freezer overnight. So you can go ahead and just wash them off with water, and then we can put them in this bigger container. And now that we have our pieces of peas and carrots, we can continue to wash them down just a little bit to make sure that any ice that's still attached can be removed, as such. And then all we're going to do is just let the peas and carrots sit here, and we will add them to the contents in the pot on the stove once we have finished letting the chicken cool off, as well as making sure we have our 2 cups of rice ready. So for now, we're just going to put the peas and carrots to the side, and we will wait for the chicken to cool off, and then we can move on to the next step of this cooking tutorial video. Okay guys, so as you can see, we have now brought in the chicken after it was cooling off outside for around 5 minutes. So now all we're going to do is take the pieces of chicken and actually pull them apart into smaller pieces as such. But we're not going to pull them apart into very thin pieces because then it won't look as appetizing when you're actually eating el arroz con pollo. So we're just going to turn them into small pieces of chicken as such. So once our chicken has been reduced down to even smaller pieces like that, we can go ahead and set them to the side for now and actually start on the actual next step, seeing as this was just another additional part from the last one. So now all we're going to do is we're going to take this big red container, and we're also going to take the contents from the pot that was cooking on the stove with the pieces of chicken. We're just going to basically transfer the residue over to this big pot. But before I do that, I'm actually going to change the camera angle so you guys can see it better. So like I was saying, all we're going to do is just transfer the food residue into this bigger bowl, and then we're going to measure out exactly 4 cups of food residue. So all we're going to do is just pour this into the bowl as such. And then we can put the actual pot to the side for now. And then with this big bowl, we're actually going to measure out 4 cups of food residue. And then once we've done that, we can go ahead and add those 4 cups back into the pot to put back on the stove. And then we can go ahead and get our 2 cups of rice that I mentioned earlier. Now that we have our, well, basically 4 cups of food residue back into the pot, we can go ahead and also measure out our 2 full cups of rice. Okay, so now that we have cleaned out our little measuring cup here, we're going to grab our stash of rice that we have in this container. Just gonna move it aside and also let you guys see. We have some rice here. And all we're gonna do is grab 2 full cups of rice. This is 1 cup. Here's our 2nd cup of rice. And then we're gonna pour it to here. And then we're going to wash the rice in the sink to get rid of any white residue that might come off the rice. And then once we've done that, we can go ahead and re-add the chicken, the rice, and then any other ingredients that we might need to make the finalized plate of arroz con pollo. Okay, so now that we have finished washing out the 2 cups of rice in the sink to make sure that any white residue gets removed from the actual rice, we can now go ahead and move on to basically the last and final step of this 5th cooking tutorial video, which is actually adding all the ingredients back into the pot and putting them back on the stove to cook for around another 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so now that we are on the final step of this cooking tutorial video, all we're going to do is just, once again, add all the pieces, all the ingredients back into the pot. And once we have finished adding the ingredients to the pot and we have put it back on the stove, the last thing we're going to do is just add some ketchup to add some more flavor to the actual arroz con pollo. And then we're going to let it cook on the stove for around 15 to 20 minutes. And then our arroz con pollo will be done. So all we got to do now is just add this little bit of rice. And if any pieces stay on, you just tap it basically like that. And then we can put all of this to the side. We can go ahead and move to the stove and turn it on with all the ingredients already inside the pot. Now that we are back on the stove with the pot with all the other ingredients inside, we can go ahead and turn the stove back on to the original temperature that it was back at 7, which is a little bit more than halfway, so that it can cook a little bit faster compared to having it on the just medium temperature. And while we wait for it to actually start heating up for the 15 to 20 minutes, we can actually test the salt to see if the flavor of the arroz con pollo is still a little bit bland. So we can grab a little spoonful as such and test it. Oh, that's actually really good. Hold on. Well, it appears, at least to me, that the salt of the arroz con pollo is actually really good. So all we're gonna do is just wait for the contents to actually start to heat up. But before we do that, after we have tested the salt, we're gonna go ahead and add a little bit of ketchup to the contents to actually add a little bit more flavor to the arroz con pollo. So we're just gonna like estimate how much we should put, somewhere around there. And then once we are done with that, we can go ahead and grab our original like mixing like spoon tool thing, and then we can go ahead and start mixing up the ingredients as such. So once again, all we're gonna do after adding the ketchup and also testing the salt, we're going to stir for a little bit and then put the stove on a temperature that's a little bit more than half, and for me it's 7. Then after we have stirred it a little bit, all we're going to do is just wait around 15 to 20 minutes. And once the 15 to 20 minutes is over, we will go ahead and turn it down to basically the lowest temperature so it can start to cool off a little bit. So for now, all we're going to do is just close the contents of the bowl. And then while we wait for the 15 minutes to 20 minutes to be over, we're going to finalize any stirring that we need to do once all the liquid inside the pot has finished drying up. Okay, so as you guys can see, the water residue from the pot has actually basically dried up now. So all that's left is the rice, the peas and carrots, the diced up pieces of onion, all the condiments, and the pieces of chicken. Did I already say that? All the water residue has been dried up. So now that it's been the 20 minutes, we can go ahead and turn the stove down to basically the lowest it can go. And we can just cover the top basically now that the water is gone. And yeah, we can just wait for the chicken to start to cool down for, let's say, 10-ish minutes. And then once we have allowed the arroz con pollo to cool off at basically the lowest temperature on the stove, we will now be done with this cooking tutorial video. Okay, so now that it's been around 10-ish minutes, now that all the ingredients inside the pot on the stove have been cooking at basically the lowest temperature on the stove. So now we can go ahead and remove the top, and we can start stirring all the ingredients. And as you guys can see, the rice did start burning a little bit at the very bottom. So I would say either cook the ingredients for either 15 minutes, not 20, or at least put the stove on half on the exactly the middle temperature in between hot and cold. So once we have finished stirring up all of the ingredients in the pot on the stove, you can go ahead and turn off the stove, and yeah, we are done with our plate of arroz con pollo. Alright, it looks like we have successfully completed our last cooking session, where we have ended up with a tasty plate of arroz con pollo that has a delicious taste of ketchup and chicken flavor seasoning. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this cooking tutorial video. Let me know down in the comment section if any one of you guys watching are willing to try to recreate this exact dish using the steps that I've provided. I also want to thank you guys so much for watching all the cooking tutorial videos I've been making for this senior project of mine. But I also want to thank every single one of my friends and family members who have been showing me support for these videos that I've made. I also want to say thank you once again to my aunt, who went out of her way to make me some custom chef aprons for this specific video as a birthday gift. And thank you to my mentor, who actually taught me how to make all 5 of these dishes that I've been making ever since like October or September, I'm pretty sure, ever since I uploaded the first cooking tutorial video. So yeah, thank you to everyone who has helped me along this journey of completing this senior project, and I couldn't ask for anything better. And although I have completed my goal of uploading 5 cooking tutorial videos for the 5 Colombian dishes that I was going to learn how to make, who knows, maybe in the future when I'm older I can make even more cooking videos when I have more experience working in the kitchen. But for now, my assignment is complete here. Thank you guys once again for watching this cooking tutorial video. Like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and yeah, thank you guys so much once again, all of you guys who have supported me, and on these YouTube channels that I've made. So, until next time, I've been Chef AJMR, and thank you so much for joining me on Cooking with AJMR. See ya!